Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to the Digitally Uploaded Podcast, the companion podcast of digitally-downloaded.net. My name is Alan, I'm going to be your host this week. I have returned from the ghosts of the dead. I am the shadow that dies twice. With me this week, we have Matt. Hello, Matt.
Hello.
He is the editor-in-chief, if you've not realised by now. He's the boy.
Nobody knows me.
He's truly the shadow that dies once. We also have Harvard. Hello, Harvard.
Hello. Which one am I, Alan?
You can be a ghoul.
Cool.
I think you could have a ghoul.
I'll be like a cool ghoul.
I hate that a lot. Moving on, we also have Trent. Hello, Trent.
Yes. Do I get a cool, fun?
What would you like? Would you like a ghost?
A ghost?
A spooky frog man?
Why am I a frog man?
I don't know.
What?
I don't know. If I saw a frog man, I'd be pretty spooked. I'm going for like spooky theme because it's always Spooktober. Anyway.
You're playing way too much Resident Evil, Alan.
I haven't played Resident Evil yet. It's not my fault. Anyway.
It's not my fault. You mean it's not your fault? You just didn't go into a shop, purchase it, put it.
No,
into
I own the game.
Oh, you own the game.
Yeah, I'm waiting to play it with friends who are coming over, so I'm saving that experience. Enough about me. It's just, we've gone through some spooky things, and now the real spookiness is the real world. We're gonna go to some news really quickly. If you are on PlayStation Plus this month, that is a good thing because you will be receiving 2 games that are fantastic and 1 extra one if you're on PS3. So you've got Hitman 2016, which is a fantastic game. The sequel just came out. Very, very good game. Hugely underrated. One of the most like sleeper hits of 2016, I think. I'm pretty confident in saying that, actually. Yeah. And also For Honor, which is okay. It's fine. Not the greatest, but it's all right.
It's okay.
Matt is snorting with derision.
It's okay. It's games as a service.
It's the Ubisoft games as a service game.
So you might get it for free on PlayStation Plus, but that's just the in because then you got to buy like $70,000 worth of season pass and DLC and shit. And
then you hate yourself.
Yeah. So good job, Ubisoft. Gives you about the $5 base game for free, and then just fleeces you for everything else.
It's like when an airport delays your flight, they give you a $5 voucher that have to spend $10 to use.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And if you've got a PS3 as well, you can pick up Metal Gear Solid 4, which if you've played Metal Gear Solid 4 before, you'd know that it's an interesting game in that it is a wank.
It's
so wank, but I love it.
That's a good description of it.
It's the last free game you get on PlayStation 3.
It is the last free game ever. It's a nice set.
They're not doing PS Plus for PS3 anymore, so it's all over.
It's a good game.
Why am I mad? I don't have a PS3.
Well, buy one.
Yeah, get one now.
Play Nier on it.
You could play Nier on it.
I go back and get the PlayStation 3 games I missed out on.
Yeah, I mean,
I think Square Enix is deliberately making Nier like the hardest game to possibly find everywhere because still can only buy it physical, and it's not even on PlayStation Network on PlayStation 3, and they've never done a HD remaster. Square Enix just wants to,
the dam.
They just want you to hate yourself for not finding a copy.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable thing to assume that Square Enix wants you to hate yourself. That's a tagline.
Yeah.
Matt, tell me some news that isn't about hating yourself.
Yeah, so P-Cube is a cool little publisher based out the UK. They've done a lot of localizations of really cool games that Alan absolutely hates, like Galgun and Steins Gate.
I can't really say that I hate them because I haven't played them, but I know that if I played them, I'd hate them. So is this like?
Yeah,
I think you would. Like
I'm preemptively saying you would hate them, Alan. So I'm doing you a favor. Anyway,
thanks, Dad.
They've been a publisher exclusively for a long time, but they're actually making their own game now, which is really neat. They've partnered up with a Japanese developer to create some weird name thing.
Is that a very cursed image I saw on Twitter?
Oh, probably.
Yeah.
You think every anime image is cursed?
No, but she was like lying down.
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah.
But they've actually pushed out since that one image, they've put out a trailer and stuff now, and it looks genuinely good. It's called Kotodama: The Seven Mysteries of Fujisawa, and yeah, it looks really nice, really pleasant looking game. So I'm very keen for this. I like P-Cube. I like visual novels, so this one looks like it'll tick boxes.
Well, that's lovely.
Yeah.
Look, if someone enjoys it, and I'm sure that you will, then I'm glad it exists because it makes people happy.
We're in a very positive mood today.
Yeah, it's raining outside. Harvard, take this away from me.
Well, cool. Speaking of positive moods, this is, I don't know how I'm going to segue, but a cool thing that released recently is Stillness of the Winds by, so they're published by Fellow Traveler, who used to be Surprise Attack Games, and they were kind of rebranded as wanting to show off just really interesting, weird art house indie games. And Stillness of the Wind is very much that. It's a game about being a grandmother on a farm in the middle of nowhere and just trying to have upkeep and like finding out about how the rest of your family are doing around in the world. And it's a very slow-paced, meditative kind of game. You milk goats and you collect eggs and you just
high stakes, high tension gameplay.
Very low stakes, very low tension, but
it's Harvest
it's a
Moon,
mood,
but artsy.
It's Harvest Mood. Harvest Mood.
Harvest Mood. There we go. That was very clever. 10 out of 10 for that pun.
I'm not a fan of comparing it to Harvest Moon or Stardew because it ticks a very different gameplay expectation. But
It's a walking simulator.
you farm in it if that's what you're looking for.
It's a Harvest Moon walking simulator. This is really. We should write press releases for these companies.
Square Enix, we want you to sell yourself by playing this game.
You should write about games.
I think we're like going to tap a new market without writing about games. I don't think there's enough sites on the internet writing about games right now. I heard this site called digitally-downloaded.net.
Nah, terrible site. They just keep putting anime boobs on it.
Yep.
Never go there.
The little old granny suddenly has
Before
big
that
boobs.
implodes, Trent. What's the news?
All right, I have some great news because the best Assassin's Creed game is finally coming out this month. Wait, next month, isn't it? March, yes. March the 29th? Yes, it is now. March the 29th. If it's not that date, Ubisoft has to delay it.
And
So-
by coming out, he actually means it's already been out, but it's getting
Coming out
re-released.
again.
Yes, because the best game, which it was the first good Assassin's Creed game. Fight me on that one. So it was the first good one, and it was the only good one up until Syndicate.
That's a very hot take, Alan, Trent.
Yeah.
You just assume it's me.
And it might help the listeners to tell them which one you're talking about. It is Assassin's Creed. It is Assassin's Creed 3, and actually, it comes with Assassin's Creed Liberation as well,
Which is a good game too.
That was my favorite. That's actually my favorite Assassin's Creed still to this day.
The one I've played the most as well.
Yeah, I really liked it. It's quite easy to play too because it's relatively short and it's not so Ubisoft in terms of useless icons that you have to chase around the map and all that kind of stuff. It's a relatively small map, so I quite liked it. I was a big fan of it on the Vita, loved it on the PS3. Can't wait to play it again on PS4. It also has Aveline as the lead protagonist, and she's great.
She is good. I like her. All right. Well, with that, we're going to go to some music. It's going to be some Miku nonsense. I'm at the point where I just have a box of Miku that I rattle around every so often, and then it falls out onto the floor, and then I'm like, that's the Miku for the week. So we're going to put that Miku on right now.
He's secretly a fan.
とそうそうチラ見せの方のつぶおぎ可愛くないそれならばこそつるむけの放送臭い走らないわ街は探しをてあってあれとこれとそれとだね秋だなかむすべるようにあなたが恋を探すように夏にもねとここに仮にも誰とでもあらぬようだ降りしきる雨の中トラックで左を捨て人生が怖いの
And welcome back, everybody. Okay, so we're going to talk about good games first this week because that's a good place to start. And I'm going to let Alan talk because Alan's been playing Kingdom Hearts 3 and he seems to think it's the perfect game. And I want to know why it's the perfect game. So, Alan, tell me why Kingdom Hearts 3 is the perfect game.
It is a perfect game in the sense that if you hate yourself and have been playing this series for like 20 years now, like it's real good. It's real dang good. So I'm probably going to do extended thoughts on this game at some point. I don't know how. I don't know when. I'll do it. Basically, the game is incredibly flawed. I think it's got some really, really big problems behind it, which is sort of the result of a long development cycle and also of Nomura writing himself into several walls and then building walls around him. So he's in a cube forever. It doesn't work unless you have context for the entire series. And I was souring quite hard on this game until the last 2 hours, and it completely changed my entire, perspective on the entire series, on that entire gameplay loop, that system. It was really, really good. And if you've seen me on Twitter, you probably would have noticed that I've just been posting up how it is the perfect game. And I stand by that in that it is the most important game that I've played in a while that has really impacted me. Like, this series has impacted me. It's dumb. I'm incredibly aware that it's so stupid, but it's perfect. And I think it's great. It's a fun game. I can't really go into details as to why because the game is still new and I don't want to spoil it. And I actually
the perfect game is a game that
it's not good.
It's not good. No, it's like important to you, or
no? I totally get that. It's like there's no such thing as a categorically perfect game, like perfect graphics and perfect gameplay, or whatever. It's just like it's something that's so impactful to you that it's going to stay. It's going to stick.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think that the idea of pursuing a perfect game for everyone is worth it because
I don't think you can do that.
No, it'll become focus tested. It'll become the EA game.
That's how they got to where they are. Because they tried to appeal to everybody, and now they had to muscle their way into making people like what they want them to like.
Yeah, well, no, now EA stuff is just brainless crap because
it's focus tested. They don't want to appeal to everyone.
Yeah, they don't want to upset anybody. But yeah, I totally get you. I mean, it's the same kind of thing with film and music and whatever. Perfection is not perfect.
Perfection
Like,
is flawed.
people point to, well, let's say Citizen Kane as the perfect film, because that's the film that everybody mentions when they talk about film as an art form and all that kind of stuff. But it's not perfect. That if it was perfect, everybody would love it. But there's an awful lot of people who are bored out of their brains watching Citizen Kane. And I think it's the same with games. For me, kind of the perfect game is Nier Automata. I still think it's the best game made ever. Unlike a lot of other game critics out there, I don't change my mind every time Sony releases a new game.
2018 must have been hard.
Days Gone.
Yeah, Days Gone's the next Citizen Kane of video games. Every time Sony releases
Citizen Game.
Game.
Game, Matt.
Citizen Game, yes, I did it. I got it in.
He's done it.
Nier Automata for me is the perfect game, but a lot of people would find Nier Automata very difficult. The aesthetic isn't perfect for everybody. It worked for me, but it's certainly not the graphics of, say, Red Dead Redemption 2 or whatever. It's not that kind of hyper-detailed horseballs visual engine. The combat is Platinum game stuff, and that doesn't sit well with everybody.
I'm wrong.
So, you can talk about these things. That it's all subjective, of course.
See, my way to tell if a good random Japanese game is good, from Matt's opinion, is if I play the game and I actually like it. In this case, with Nier Automata, I did, and that means that it is the perfect game, because I have some really weird tastes in games and some really... Time is the biggest thing for me with games. If I get distracted or hated or whatever, and I just hate the experience up until the point I just put it down, then it's not a good game. But Nier Automata, like the way I actually played it, because I didn't finish that game, I'm going to admit that, but I got pretty far into it. I enjoyed every little bit. I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed like the events, like just how the world changed, how like things sort of like, oh, here's this new area which is like slightly different because the world's blown up or something, like, that sort of progression and changes into the environment. Like, I love that, and that's why it's a perfect game, because Matt likes it, but I liked it, which means there's two people liking it, which means it's good.
It wasn't just that I liked it. I mean,
That's a very interesting theory, that if both you and Matt like it, it means that it's perfect.
Yeah, I'm not that narcissistic. I like a lot of other games. Like, for instance, I really enjoyed Yakuza 0. I don't think Yakuza 0 is the perfect game. I think it's a great game. I think it's a brilliant game, but I don't think it's a perfect game. I think, to your point, Alan, a perfect game also needs to be something that has some kind of personal resonance, and Nier Automata had that personal resonance to me. It was kind of, this is a game that really matches with my idea of what art is, for example, and as I'm kind of a big fan of art and stuff, that means a lot. Therefore, Nier Automata really impacted on me in that way. So I think that is kind of the best basis we have for what is a perfect game. If it has that really strong resonance, even if it's flawed in other ways, horribly flawed in other ways, even if it makes absolutely no sense in the narrative, as Kingdom Hearts does.
Yeah. No, you can have a sentence in Kingdom Hearts that they say the word heart 4 times, and 3 of it is with different contexts.
Yeah. So I think I've said my opinions on Kingdom Hearts in the past often enough. That series is certainly not the perfect game for me, but that's fine, because it's a perfect game for Alan, and that's the point. Perfection. I don't know. People have this idea that perfection is this objective thing that everybody must agree that it's the most perfect thing. It's so great and all that stuff.
Review sites are paid.
But yeah, I don't know. If Red Dead Redemption was if Red Dead Redemption was the perfect game, then it can't be, because I didn't think so.
Yeah.
So that kind of metric that there's some kind of objective truth to what perfection is just silly. But it's okay to still call a game that's flawed perfect, and I think people miss that a lot.
I think it's also important to note that there's not one game that can be perfect. I think there's a lot of games out there that I would consider perfect, despite having incredibly big problems. Like Majora's Mask, for example, doesn't really work if you've never played the game before or never seen it before, because it's real hard for no reason. But I still think it's perfect.
It's still better than Ocarina of Time.
It is. It is straight up.
No, Ocarina of Time is the perfect Zelda game for me. So see, we can disagree on these things, but it's still valid.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
still
the
valid.
things that I am interested in are different to what Matt might be interested in, different to what Harvard is interested in, is different to what Trent's interested in. So it makes sense that we all disagree on,
So I think the Zelda
on things
argument is
being
the
perfect.
best to sort of find what we look for in a game, because, you know, if me and Alan like Majora's Mask, then there's probably going to be different things we're looking for in a game. But when I look at Majora's Mask as like one of the perfect Zelda games, I'm looking at things like, I like the mask concept, I like the story concept, I like the 3-day mechanics, like the dungeon and all that. That's like second, like oddly enough, that sort of thing is like second to in the game for me. Like it's more about the story, it's more about the environment in Majora's Mask, and that's why I love it so much. But then you've got Ocarina of Time, which is more of a traditional Zelda game. It's more 3D. It's a 3D environment for Link to the Past. A lot of people like that nostalgia. And, you know, it's a really strong Zelda game with those dungeons. It's less focused on story, but still has a good, solid experience and interesting worlds. But combat is more of a strong point, whereas Majora's Mask, story is more a strong point. So different people, like the Zelda argument is a really good way to find, okay, well, in a series which has spanned over so many years and has so many different entries with different takes, it's really easy to find, well, as a series, what are you looking for the most in the games? And Majora's Mask is one of the stronger ones for me. I like Breath of the Wild. Matt hates Breath of the Wild.
I was going to say, Breath of the Wild, if you like that game, you're wrong.
Like, so when I look at Breath of the Wild, what I'm looking at is, like, I like I like the peacefulness. I like the story is taken out of it, which is a strong thing for me. But I like the environment. That is still really good, strong environmental storytelling in Breath of the Wild, and so that's still great. I like the exploration. You know, you can just go down and find a spot and be like, oh, there's like a dungeon here. That's great. Like, that is why I like that. And then the Minish Cap, it has great opening. It's that.
And then it's just an okay
game. Yes. But
no, the Minish Cap was great.
I love it, but it doesn't hold up very well.
But I guess that's kind of to the conversation about kind of how we can define a perfect game. For me, Okami is actually more close to the perfect Zelda game as such. Because,
hot takes though.
No, because it's
made by Kamiya. It's going to be good.
Well, Neo is for me closer to the perfect game than Dark Souls, because the kind of things that I'm interested in a video game are, in those two examples in particular, is the Japanese culture and the way that the games work within the Japanese culture and tell stories that are based on Shinto mythology in Okami and Japanese history as such with Neo. So yeah. People have different things, obviously, that they go into a game looking for. But I guess the point is that there's a number of people out there that seem to think we can't talk about a game as being a perfect game because no game can be perfect. Well, that's true. No game can be objectively perfect, but that doesn't mean that.
Yeah.
You know, because for me, perfection just means it's a game that we wouldn't necessarily change, and I wouldn't change something like Nier Automata or Okami or Neo for anything, even though there is stuff in those games that I didn't like or thought were not, you know, the ideal, that they frustrated me in some way or another. But I wouldn't change them because the flaws make the game. Just as like Kingdom Hearts fans would not change Kingdom Hearts' narrative. And I know
if you've seen Twitter, Matt, people are mad.
No, because
one guy doesn't get mentioned as much as everyone else.
No, but I've been out there. I've been saying things about Kingdom Hearts' narrative, and I can assure you there are a lot of people that get very defensive about Kingdom Hearts' narrative. Even if
I sympathize.
They get very, very defensive about that stuff.
See, Matt, what you're really missing here is the fact that the entirety of the game is built around this one old guy touching children.
Well, that sure sounds like perfect to me, Alan.
It's a good game series, Matt.
I feel like it's something.
Xehanort touches kids, the game.
You've just invested too much time in it.
This is the way that I end the section.
You just, like, the second you said that, just immediately cut to, like, the new Kingdom Hearts song.
And welcome back. So from the very best in games to the very worst, let's talk about Spike Volleyball. Spike Volleyball annoys me a great deal, and it's terrible.
End of section.
End of section.
Give us some music.
So, story time. I'm a big fan of volleyball, the sport. I watch it at the Olympics all the time. Actually, it's a big sport in Japan. So when I go to Japan, I actually watch it on TV and stuff over there as well. And I really like it. And then Spike Volleyball comes along, and I see it on the pre-order section of the PlayStation Store, and I think that's okay. I'm intrigued. And so I put it on pre-order for the cool $99.95 that it costs in Australia.
Out.
And a month later, it comes out, so I download it, and it's absolutely terrible. Now, I didn't expect it to be a great game. I didn't exactly expect EA quality FIFA soccer quality, but I was not quite prepared for just how bad it was, and I started posting videos up on Twitter, and I think I scared Alan out of ever playing this game.
No, I'm gonna play it. I will play it one day, and I'm gonna just drink.
because when you play online, the ball doesn't even move with any kind of laws of physics. It just disappears off the screen and then reappears and jumps all over the place. And it's a very magical ball. It maybe came from Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah,
it was a heart ball.
it was created by Xehanort to bounce with fury and darkness.
So yeah, I was very disappointed as a fan of volleyball. I didn't mind actually spending the money because I kind of wanted to support the idea of making volleyball games anyway. And the only way they're going to get better is if people buy them, that they keep making sequels. But yeah, this is terrible. And I've honestly got to say that it's the worst game I can ever think that I've played, including, and I played some pretty impressively bad games.
Important to note that Matt hasn't really gone through the hellfire that is Steam Marketplace. So there are probably some worse games out there.
Yeah, I obviously avoid the asset flipping stuff that goes up on Steam, and I because I'm primarily a console gamer, I get to miss a lot of that really bad stuff. So let's rephrase. Let's say Spike Volleyball is the worst legitimate game that I've ever played in my life. It's a genuine game that was actually made by professional game developers, and it's just terrible.
Matt, I have a question for you.
Yes.
You played Skylight Free Range Gatch to Win.
I did.
Right? And it's worse than that?
It is.
Oh, shit.
only because that Skylight Free Range whatever game was made by like two people, and
doesn't excuse it.
And it was ambitious at least. Spike Volleyball doesn't even understand how volleyball works as a sport.
Well, it's because the ball teleports in real volleyball.
Well, no, it's not just that. It's also the players don't scramble for the ball. So the ball just kind of falls between them and nobody's moving around to try and chase it down.
So it sounds like PE volleyball where like half the kids don't care.
Yeah, pretty much. It's easy to imagine it that way. So I think also, this was a professional product. Skylight Free Range was still an amateur thing. Yes, it was thrown up on the PlayStation Store, but it was still, these guys were not professional game developers as such. You didn't expect a minimum standard. And yeah, I accept that it's difficult to make a sports game, especially since firstly you get immediately compared to FIFA, and most sports games can't compare to that.
Yeah, because they don't have infinite money.
Secondly, sports are actually very difficult to program because you've got to have pretty complex AI, and volleyball's not an easy sport by any means because there's 6 players on each side and the physics are quite difficult. And while the rules of volleyball are fairly simple, the tactics that are involved are quite difficult to implement because they're fast. It's a very fast game. So I accept all of that, and I think when I say that it's the worst game I've ever played, I think it's in part because it just so badly missed my expectations of a minimum that I was expecting for a sports game.
So it's No Man's Sky, but for sports.
When I went into Skylight Free Range, I wasn't expecting a good game, or I wasn't.
Why not? Did you not see the screenshots?
I wasn't expecting something that I could even really enjoy playing, and I got what I expected.
I love the idea idea that you're going into games being like, I'm gonna hate this, and then confirming it almost instantly.
The joys of the game critic, Alan. Sometimes I do have to play games that I know I'm not going to enjoy going in. I mean, I played Agony, and I knew that was going to be terrible going in.
I thought you were gonna like Agony, didn't you?
What?
I thought
No,
you liked it.
I liked the idea of Agony.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, but then it came out, and I saw some of the other reviews, and I was like, "Yep, not going to enjoy this one." Loaded up
You
myself,
started singing. You started singing the song from Into the Woods.
Yeah. Anyway,
Here's a reference.
Harvard, what would you say is the worst game that you've ever played, not including the asset flip crap on Steam, and why?
When I was a kid, I played a lot of like really bad licensed games. You know, back in the days of, I don't know what the company was, like Vivendi or
Yeah,
like,
Vivendi.
Yeah, they were great.
like they just made the biggest cash out games you could that had like one level that was pretty good and the rest of it was disastrous.
Because they gave the developers like a week and a half to make it with some
I
shoestring
realize
and
that
a
now.
top.
I actually miss the days of those licensed games.
Yeah, because you'd get one every so often that was actually good.
Or
Yeah,
even if
sometimes
they
they
were
tried.
even if they were bad, they were kind of funny because they were that bad. Like Superman 64.
No, that's not funny. That's pain.
It was
I
funny.
actually never tried it, but you know, actually, there's a guy on YouTube called Proton John, and he did an interview with the original guys who made that game and try to figure out why it ended up the way it did. It was super interesting.
Yeah, I actually think I've seen that. Yeah, it's like basically just a cacophony of disaster.
Yeah, apparently, I think I might be remembering wrong, but the developer thinks that the flying through rings levels are tutorial levels.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so maybe what was shipped is actually different from what they thought what the finished game was.
That makes me very happy. That's great. Yeah, like what would you say is the worst one that you've played then?
This one that I've played,
Hmm.
it'd have to be like probably like one of the Beyblade games. You know, in real life, Beyblade has no interactivity, right?
It's
You
also
spin a
not
top
fun.
and yell at people.
Yeah,
And
it's like being
the
on
video
Twitter.
game version of it is like you can use the arrow keys to move your Beyblade around, but it's still somehow no interactivity. It's like you hit the Beyblade, cool, there you go down a bit, and then you just keep doing that for 15 minutes.
Yeah, that sounds like a really fun time.
You know what the best Beyblade game is? It's the coin pin game in the World Ends With You. That is the best Beyblade game.
I have no idea what that game is.
I also don't, but I have really been meaning to try the World Ends With You. It really like reminds me of youth Tazo culture. That's I miss that.
And having badges on your shirt to look like a cool youth.
Tazo.
Yeah, the really
Oh,
stupid
the
ones
little
where like
the ones you got out
yeah.
of the chip packets.
Yeah, like the stupid gambling games that all the chip packets would convince you was not gambling.
It's definitely not gambling. No, sorry, Bob. No. Definitely.
So I
not.
like Burger Man because they came with a little little mechanical like pits you can like plick out, and then you like little build like a little car or something.
So it's a Kinder Surprise, but sadness instead of surprise.
It came with
Kinder
chips, like
sadness.
fun chips.
Okay, Trent, what's the worst game that you've played? Tell me.
See, unlike everyone else, I don't seek out bad games, so I'm pretty, I don't really play bad games. So all the games I play are good. Not really. That's a bit bad take there. But, I definitely think a lot of the bad games I've played are actually when I go back to older games. So games which I really wanted to play as a kid or which I couldn't get or purchase at the time. And then I've gone back, decades later and like, you know what? I'm going to buy this game. I'm going to enjoy it. It's going to be great. Like Eternal Darkness, I bought it for the GameCube. I sat down. I, took it out of the disc. I put it into the GameCube. I probably lasted about 5 minutes. Like that game is trash in terms of its current standards for game design. Like,
Well,
it hurts me. It hurts me so much.
Trent, if you only played it for 5 minutes, you didn't actually get to any of the game. So,
Yeah.
but that is essentially my experience with all of these old games, which I really, really wanted to love as a kid. And then now I've played them as an adult, and I'm just like, these are trash. like Internal Darkness. I think a few other GameCube games I bought. I think some of the Star Fox. I played the Star Fox game eventually.
Trent,
a few of them.
Trent, you do realize that you are doing the equivalent of going to a Shakespeare play and then complaining about it because the English isn't right.
No.
I think you're going in to these games with the expectation that they have kind of the modern production.
Well, not even that. Like, I wanted to love them as a kid. Like, I was really excited for them. Like, oh, Eternal Darkness looks so cool. You get all these things like at the end, and Nintendo Gamer magazines and the Game Informers or whatever was out at the time. And I'm like, oh, look, these are so cool. Look at all this cool thing. I want this to play this. And then I just never get it. And then it's like, well, I go back with this nostalgia in my head, and I'm like, this game doesn't have all this.
Well, Eternal Darkness is a good example because by its standards, when it was new, it was a particularly well-playing horror game. It was a good example of the horror genre in terms of the way it was structured and designed. So, yes, it's moved on since then. Horror games don't look and play like that anymore, and they don't try and do what Eternal Darkness did. But yeah, if you expect Eternal Darkness to play like, I don't know, Resident Evil 2 remake, there's a reason that they remade Resident Evil 2 the way they did, is because
they wanted to make it playable.
Yeah, because Resident Evil 2, as great as it was back then, doesn't play particularly well now. I think we have to remember that
this is why remakes are good.
Remakes are great, but we should also not go and call kind of retro
Darkness.
We can't. We shouldn't be calling retro games bad just because they don't play like modern games.
See, I was about to do a really hot take and say that every game made before 1995 is bad.
Well, was it like your birth just saved video games?
Yeah, basically. The year after they released all the good games ever.
See, on that take though, I think the SNES was great, but the NES definitely didn't age well. But there's a lot of older games which I like. Like I like Adventure. No, was it Adventure? Yeah. I liked that. I liked Hyper Chase on the Vectrex, a few other Vectrex games as well, like Minesweeper, that sort of thing. Like they were okay. Pac-Man, they're classics, but the NES, oh, it's so bad.
No, I actually agree with Trent. I get that. Like, there's some NES games that hold up. If you go back and play Super Mario Bros. 3 or Kirby's Adventure, like the ones where they figured out how to actually develop the NES, like it's good. But I feel I can list off a number of games where I think don't go back and play in the original format, like Final Fantasy 1. Matt, you could attest to this.
No, I'm enjoying playing through it again. I mean, it is.
There are better ways to play it though. Like
why would you play the NES version?
Because the NES version was the original, and
I feel like Matt's also fairly connected to that game too.
There's historical and archival value in it in playing the original, and I certainly I know that JRPGs have got a lot better since Final Fantasy 1, and Final Fantasy 1 is no longer a good example of the genre, but at the time it was. And to call it a bad game, I don't know. I think that's a bit of a hot take.
I think you can call it a culturally significant game.
I think it's a game that has aged poorly. I think that's a fair take. But to say it's a bad game, yeah, I don't know. And I'm sorry, Trent, but Eternal Darkness is not a bad game. It might have aged.
Trash.
It might have aged badly, but it is actually on the other side of things. It's kind of a classic of the genre.
I'd kind of really argue as well that you can't really play Eternal Darkness in a modern setting.
Yeah,
because you need to have those TV effects.
Yeah,
you need to have them work, and
that's true. Hey,
like you need that experience to make the game.
Oh man, kids these days don't know what a glitching VHS looks like.
They don't have the blue screen of death.
Mind you, they did mess up that themselves, because in Eternal Darkness, those TV effects or those effects were tied to your character going insane.
Yeah,
like 13 monsters, and then they give you the ability to just heal your sanity.
Yeah, it seems a bit.
Which meant that after, I think it was after the second level or something, once I got that heal ability, I no longer experienced any sanity effects, which was a bit counterintuitive. But
they should have. Okay, I will maintain that Dead Space 3 took that idea and ran with it in a modern setting because it did the co-op thing where, like, if you're playing with someone else, they'd be seeing monsters when you wouldn't, so they'd be freaking out. And you
that's pretty cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
cool.
That's
yeah,
neat.
Dead Space 3, like, people hated it because it had horrible microtransaction nonsense. But it was actually, like, really good.
I played Dead Space 3 through in single player. My problem with it was that it was
not scary.
particularly scary. Yeah,
No.
It was like an action shooter, right?
It's
It
like
was-
Resident Evil 5. It's Resident Evil 5, but for Dead Space.
I was actually going to say it's more like, because it's sci-fi setting and all that, it's more like Mass Effect, but with a slightly horror theme. to
Yeah.
it. But
That game's really fun, though.
But then Mass Effect has its horror moments as well, so it seemed a little bit redundant to me. But anyway, I liked Mass Effect. Sorry, I liked the Dead Space 3 enough as a shooter. I didn't think it was much of a horror game. That's all.
Exactly.
I think Amnesia does a good job of the sanity thing.
I don't like the shaky cam. I think it's bad, but actually, that's my game that I'm going to say is bad. Amnesia. I hate it, but I really enjoy it.
Like Dark Descent?
Yeah.
Or just the series?
Oh, also, Machine for Pigs is trash too.
Actually,
I hate both of them. I can't get into it.
You
I
can't-
really hate those games.
You're not allowed to talk about Machine for Pigs that way, Alan. That's
Because
bad.
it's
You're a
the
very
Chinese
bad
room. They
person.
don't know how to make games. They make boring sneeze fests.
Alan, quiet, Alan.
Okay, so I'm not going to disagree that it's a
Time
boring
out.
sneeze fest, but it's
Time
also
out.
great.
Yeah.
Machine of Pigs is actually really great.
I'm sure it's okay, but it's not what I wanted. It's not what anyone wanted.
I wanted it. It was a narrative-driven walking simulator. I always want
Right.
that, Alan.
With
Every
angry-
time.
How much Victorian era industrialism horror have you ever played? You know, it's such an interesting.
You know what?
idea.
Give that idea to someone else. give it to Suda.
And I can't believe you're actually talking about those games as though they're bad when you've got Outlast just
Oh
around
yeah,
the
no,
corner.
Outlast.
Oh, that's probably bad horror games.
I hate Outlast.
Outlast is by far the worst horror game I've
Actually, no,
ever played.
Outlast 2 is probably worse because it's just so gross.
Actually, yeah, I'll give you that because Outlast 1 had some ideas.
It was also like a part of its time.
Yeah.
Hey man, actually, can I get something off my chest? There's one game for the entirety of my time at EDM which gave me the code, and I just never sent you a review. And that was this horror game from Steam that was just so bad.
What was it?
I don't even remember that.
I don't remember what it's called, but it was like back in the era where everyone thought Five Nights at Freddy was cool. So everyone was making clones of Five Nights at Freddy's, and this game was like basically Five Nights at Freddy's, but there was not only just one monster, but one animation of the monster killing you.
I honestly don't remember this because I hold a grudge if people don't put their reviews in, and I
well,
don't remember this.
Harvard's now going to die.
Well, thanks, Harvard. Thanks for reminding me that I have to hold a grudge against you, Harvard.
Okay.
Actually, before we end this segment really quickly, if you do want to play a surprisingly really good Five Nights sort of game, Alien Blackout is on phone, and you should check it out. It's $5. It's genuinely worth that price. Honestly, it's pretty cool.
Thanks for
surprisingly
that, Alan.
good
We're
Five
talking
Nights.
about bad horror game or bad games.
I know, but it's good.
You're recommending a good game. That this is
Yeah, because it's new and no one seems to care about it, which makes me sad.
Everyone should just download Lemmings on their mobile phone. It's got microattractions, which makes it bad, but it's good outside of that.
Okay.
We're gonna talk about mobile phone games now in the last section.
Yeah, we're doing it.
We're doing
Oh,
it.
Yeah.
cut the
Anyways.
music, but when we come back, I got a thing.
Harvard's got a thing. And welcome back. That was some music from Eternal Darkness, which I felt like we needed to play. It's a good game.
Good music.
It's good music, yeah. It's spooky. It's spooky scare. It's keeping in with the theme of the intro of the podcast, obviously. So we're going to talk a little bit at the end about some mobile phone games, because if you listened to the end of that last section, you would have heard that I was talking about Alien Blackout, which is a Five Nights style game, and it's really, really good. Like it's good enough that I'm not mad that it exists. Like over. No, it's because the gamers rose up and they were mad about Alien Isolation not getting a direct sequel right away.
Oh, I remember that. That was because they teased like an Alien game thing.
Yeah, and it was a phone game. And the phone game is out, and it's good.
I can't believe they did that after the Diablo thing.
Yeah, that was a really strange play.
I mean, it's like you just saw what happened when you tease something and then make it a phone thing. Like
maybe they already had it.
Wait, someone did this after the Diablo thing? Because like you were explaining it and how everything happened, and I'm just like, this is what happened to Diablo, and then someone else decided that was good marketing.
Yes, somebody obviously looked at what happened with Diablo and said, we got to get in on that, and they did. And
this is the gif of Adachi from Persona 4 getting punched in the face repeatedly.
But yeah, mobile games. I think we don't talk about them much anymore, I think.
Not really. Because I don't know, do you guys play them much?
I do, a little bit.
Every now
I actually play board games a bit on my mobile phone because it's a good platform for that. And when I'm on a train or something and just need some time to waste, I can whip out Catan or Waterdeep or Tokaido or one of those actual board games. And it's so much more convenient to play those things when you're on a plane or whatever than actually carrying a board around and unpacking it and getting the pieces out and all that stuff. So, yeah, I'm a fan of phones for that. But I find that mobile phone games, I was initially very enthusiastic about them. This is back when DDNet was quite new. So, what,
8 years ago, yeah.
8 or so years ago when mobile games were... When everybody was talking about the future of games being mobile games, one of the things that people were talking about a lot was that there would be a space, I guess, for premium mobile games and not just free-to-play stuff. That didn't eventuate, and I think the problem, or one of the reasons I don't pay too much attention to the mobile game space now, is that it's all just so free-to-play nonsense, and I just can't stand the way that free-to-play ruins games. And the fact that when you do a free-to-play game, you lock yourself out of certain creative things that I like in games, like a decent narrative. Because a free-to-play game needs to be endless content. Otherwise, if you don't keep people playing...
I'm going to suggest something really quickly, but Kingdom Hearts Union Cross is actually on phone, and it's got a good story.
Is it a contents game, Alan?
No, it's like it's like Final Fantasy 14 rather, with how they update the story like every 2 months, pretty much.
Oh, okay. Well, it's just, I find that because these games need to be endless, because if they're not endless and you're not on, continuing to play, then they don't make money out of you. Because they are endless, the stories don't structure themselves around how a story should be structured. There's no kind of beginning, middle, and end, to use creative writing 101.
Like Magic Cup Jump. I spent so much money on that.
Well, for me, the great example is Fire Emblem Heroes. Initially, I was quite keen on Fire Emblem Heroes because it had all the characters that I liked from Fire Emblem, and it had wedding dresses and stuff. So it was fan service to the max, which was great. But but the narrative sucked, and that's because they just kept throwing more narrative in there, and it just annoyed me. So I gave up on it. I haven't played it for a good year now.
So I think the weird thing of mobile games, and the trend lately has been like just gacha mechanics and
it's atrocious.
Keeping like daily limit daily bonuses and just keeping you on as much as you can. And a lot of games have autoplay now, so it plays itself.
Yeah, I don't even get that. I mean, what's the point of playing the game if you're not going to play the game?
I ask it, but also I feel like it satisfies this idea of just getting stronger without actually having to do anything. Like if you're stuck on a train and you can't press buttons, feels good.
It's just so redundant. It just feels like it has no purpose to exist if you're not playing a game when you're playing a game.
Well,
It frustrates me.
we're also at the point where the Switch exists.
Yeah.
And like,
I think the Switch kind of killed that.
yeah, like I don't play games on my phone anymore because I'll generally have my Switch in my bag because it's just like a good console.
And a lot of the better mobile games are actually on the Switch anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So like Bury Me My Love, for example, that originally came out on phone and stuff. But
Matt, it's not even a game, and you're not even a journalist.
yeah, thanks, Alan. You have to read out that whole comment now.
Understand that joke, Alan.
Yeah, the listeners aren't going to understand that joke.
Nope, I'm going to leave it in there as it is. No context.
But yeah, Bury Me My Love is great. I actually like all the Kairosoft kind of light simulation games on Switch as well. Like Hot Spring Story and Mega Mall Story and Game Dev Story. I like those. They're good.
Game Story is really, really good. It's a nice phone game.
Yeah, it works well on Switch too. So yeah, Switch has certainly replaced a lot of that stuff for the kind of premium mobile phone games.
Yeah,
and it's just the free-to-play crap that's left on phone.
Yeah,
also, what
I
I'm
will
saying.
say. Oh, sorry. No, you go ahead.
No, I was going to change topics. So if you wanted to add to that.
Oh, as soon as Slay the Spire comes out on phones, I'm going to die. It's a good game.
What's that?
Slay the Spire. It's a like roguelite card building, like deck building game. It's really fun.
Oh, sounds
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, check it out. If you haven't played it before, it's probably like one of the best games of last year, but it was in early access.
I like roguelikes and I like deck building.
Nice. Okay, well, give it a whirl.
Yeah. So I got recommended a phone game from my friend called Life is a Game by Diarysoft, and they gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and they say it's dark and requires no skill and doesn't come with instructions. You'll love it. I actually haven't played it, but I trust my friend's judgment, so I'm going to recommend it. Life is a Game by Diarysoft.
Okay, I'll check it out. I mean, there are obviously some good games on the phone. Like Florence last year was a great game, and
I've been really surprised by what's been possible and the developers that have considered the phone as a platform and developed for it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's those developers that are happy to or able to sell their game at a certain price as a premium game rather than a free-to-play one, so they don't have to mess up the interface with icons everywhere saying buy this in 20 different types of currency to buy into and all that kind of loot boxes or gacha mechanics or whatever. All that kind of stuff is really annoying. And when a developer can get rid of that, you get some really good stuff. Framed is another good one.
I don't like Framed, but I respect it.
Okay.
Aussies actually do a pretty good job with mobile games in general.
And we got Paperbark as well. That's pretty cool.
Paperbark is a good game.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Damwell 2, if you've not played it before, is very, very good.
Excellent, yeah. And Valleys Between? Is that what it's called? The Valleys Between?
You sure? Monument Valley, you mean?
Monument Valley.
No. It's like the Hex puzzle game.
Okay.
Australia.
Sure. Also would like to point out as well that Square Enix puts out consistently pretty decent phone games. Like the Hitman Go was fantastic.
Oh yes, and Tomb Raider Go.
And the Hitman Sniper Challenge is also very good. And they're all sort of premium games that you can get on your phone, and they're designed around that concept, which is great.
And actually, they've done a pretty good job of porting quite a few of their older games to phone as well. Like the Dragon Quest ones actually work pretty well on phone. I'm pretty impressed with them.
Well, the Final Fantasy like remakes are all on phone and iPad as well.
We don't talk
and actually,
about
Final Fantasy 15 Pocket Edition or whatever it's called. That's actually good fun.
Yeah.
It's actually good fun. It's genuinely good fun. And actually, the Dissidia RPG that they put out at the same time they put the fighting game out, that's actually worthwhile by the standards of free-to-play games. I quite enjoyed that.
Yeah, phone games are surprisingly good when they're built for phone and not just built to consume money.
I do have to.
Some phone sites already made that conclusion 10 years ago.
They did, but the thing is, I don't know.
I was born 10 years ago.
with digitally downloaded, we started out doing a lot more with phones, and we've kind of fallen off them a bit over the last two or 3 years. And I think that's the reason why. It's just there's no money in doing premium phone games anymore. And those days where there was like XCOM and Total War and stuff actually coming out on phone and iPad and whatever, those days are over. And instead, we're just getting trash after trash.
So I think part of this is, Matt, you always rant about this every time I say a lot of things like Game Pass and stuff. It basically comes down to the devaluation of the game like what you would expect to pay for a game on a platform. And so mobile games, they came out really quick with freemium games. And so there isn't that expectation that, okay, I can pay $5, $10 for a mobile game. There isn't that, okay, that's allowed, that's acceptable. There's this, oh, well, I'm paying for a game. Why am I paying for a game on a mobile platform? It should be freemium. And then, you know, somewhere along the line, you're still sinking in $20 to $50 to $80 on this free-to-play game because you're stuck in the gotcha mechanics loop. Like,
Well, yeah, I mean, when phones were new, when the iPhone was just out and the App Store was just starting to be explored as a game thing, games were released generally, for $5 to $10, and people were paying that. And then Angry Birds came along and it was 99 cents. And then all of a sudden people thought, well, I can get 70 million levels of Angry Birds for 99 cents. Why should I pay anything more for any other game? And then Clash of Clans comes along and it's free. And everybody's like, well, Clash of Clans is free, Candy Crush is free. Why do I have to pay anything at all for these games? So yeah, it has been a process of devaluation, and yeah,
it's all right.
It sucks. I'm very upset by this. But I have to ask, Alan, have you played the very best phone game of all?
Is it some porn thing?
No, it's Pokemon Go. I mean, what?
No, it's Clive Palmer's.
No, the one where you stomp on Bill Shorten's head as a cockroach. Yeah, that game is hilarious.
Clive Palmer, humble meme merchant.
You collect Tim Tams.
Wait, did he make that, or did someone?
No, it's a genuine part of his campaign.
It's actually part of his campaign. So for listeners who aren't in Australia and haven't been following the surreal political environment that we have at the moment.
Oh my God! What the hell is this?
Clive Palmer wants to be our Donald Trump, and Clive Palmer's idea of reaching out to the young kids was to develop a mobile phone game in which Clive Palmer runs through 2D platforming levels, picking up Tim Tams, a classic Australian biscuit, and jumping on cockroaches which have the head of the opposition leader stuck on them. Which
and also
sounds odd, I guess. But when you see it in execution, it is. We were talking about bad games in the last episode or the last section of the podcast, and I mentioned that Spike Volleyball was the worst game made by professionals. This game would generally be the worst game anybody's ever made. The weirdest thing is nobody actually knows who made this game. So
it's a mystery. Yeah,
it's an actual mystery. I put out. It's some guy called Tom West or something. No, that's the tuner guy. That's the tuner guy, isn't it? Tom West.
No, that's John.
John West. Anyway, Tom West. Tom West. I think. Anyway, this guy, I think his name was Tom West. Anyway, Clive Palmer was out there talking about how this Tom West guy made it, and I think it's actually listed as a Tom West game on the App Store.
Hold on, I'll look it up.
Listed as an Emu War game, which
Emu War games. Anyway, I put out a call on Twitter saying, has anybody in the Australian game development industry actually heard of this guy? And I follow or am followed by pretty much most of the industry, and absolutely nobody knows who this guy is. So, as far as we can tell, it's a marketing company that was set up about 2 months ago, a digital marketing company that was set up about 2 months ago. So it's all dodgy as anything. But that's Clive Palmer for you. He's also using some really popular 80s song, which
he's using Tears for Fears, isn't he?
Oh yeah, the music's great. The music is just like some dude singing lyrics, but inserting Clive Palmer into it. Of popular music. It's something surreal. I don't know if it's available worldwide. I actually recommend everybody go and download it if you're listening to the podcast. It's free, of course. Don't fall for the propaganda because it's obviously a propaganda game. But
we're gonna make Australia great again.
Truly the Dark Souls of Australian politics.
It's surreal.
Oh, these reviews. Can I read this review for you, please?
Yeah, please do.
Amazing gameplay, amazing soundtrack, and acting. I enjoyed Scotty Morrison saying, Clive, please don't take me prime ministership. It's all I've got.
And you just know Clive Palmer wrote that one himself.
Yeah, it's by Tech Deck Pros. All right, and with that, I think we're going to call it there.
Hey, we should see if we can get the music off the app.
No, I refuse. I'm
There's
not downloading
one review that actually says this game has great music, apparently.
Yeah, we're gonna run with the music at the end of the thing.
Clive Palmer game music. If it exists,
Yes, this is what
Yeah.
we're going.
The Clive Palmer version of Culture Club Karma Chameleon. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Didn't he
Well,
get sued for using that Twisted Sister song?
yes, he did. Yes, he did. Because D. Snyder was like, "You're an idiot."
Did he not learn his lesson and now using Culture Club? Like, surely Boy George would not support Clive Palmer.
Like, I don't know. Fuck this. All right.
We're doing it. We're doing it, and we probably won't have any listeners next week. But if you are, thanks for tuning in, and we may see you next week. We promise we won't play Clive Palmer's music again, but we just have to do it this one time.
We're gonna live stream the game instead.
We got to get it out of the system.
Yeah.
Clive Palmer here. The Liberals are attacking my integrity. We need more love and compassion, more forgiveness, no hate ads from me.
Well, he's from Queensland, but he really loves WA. You hear his ads on the radio every day.
Hi, Clive Palmer here.
He's a rich man and now a politician. He's a man who builds dinosaurs. Getting a Senate seat is his ambition. Tony Abbott's a bore and Bill Shorten's a dog. Palmer's worth a billion. He's got 12 votes and he needs your votes. He doesn't like Liberal, Labour or the Greens. He likes pies and cream. He wants a Senate seat. Tony Abbott is his rival. He likes jam with his tribal. When he twerked, it went viral. The KFC menu is his Bible. Palmer's worth a billion. He's got 12 votes, and he needs your votes. He doesn't like Liberal, Labour, or the Greens. He likes pies and cream. He wants a Senate seat.